Good afternoon and welcome to Live with Next Great Step. Really excited to be with all of you today. I am coming to you live on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on YouTube. So whatever channel that you're watching, please say hello in the comments and let me know where you are watching from. Wanted to reach out to our community, our audience today, because this is a strange back to school, back to work season, especially for college students, recent grads, and their parents. We see a lot of things happening that are different in terms of hiring and the job market. And I want to talk about some of the important things that are happening to give you the resources that you need. My name is Beth Hendler Grunt, and I am the founder of Next Great Step. And our sole focus is to provide guidance and career coaching to college students and recent grads to help them land the job that they deserve. So we talk to many parents, many students, many young adults about the job search, and especially now because it looks quite different from how it used to look, or even how letting people expected it to be in this time frame. If you're a parent, you're clearly wanting to know how can you guide your young adult child to do the right things to help them get off the payroll and launch. If you are a recent grad, whether it's class of 2020, 2019, 2018, doesn't matter, is how do you manage this market of uncertainty and really be able to move yourself forward. And then if you're a college student, there's still opportunities of how do you then look for the internship or that first job, where recruiting looks really different right now. So we're going to touch on a few key points today, specifically about the video interview, which is really the mainstay of what's happening, of how companies and recruiters are interviewing. I want to touch on the virtual career fair, which is very different from what previous career fairs look like. And then I want to talk about who's hiring and what is the market that we're moving into. And most importantly, I want to be answering your questions. So as we get started and as I'm talking, please put your questions in the comment box. I will do my best to answer them and support you in doing that. So I'm going to see if I can work this technology here. And I think I'm able to share some slides of just the overview of what we're talking about today. And I thought it was appropriate to start off in very untimely passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And she has a quote that I think is very relevant to the way a lot of young job seekers feel. It's that so often in life, things that you regard as an impediment turn out to be great, good fortune. And right now that feels that way for a lot of people, especially a lot of young job seekers, of what's happening in the market and how difficult things are. And if we even look back to the recession of 2008, there were some incredible companies that started and some new ideas, whether it was, WhatsApp or Instagram or Uber. So I think there's opportunity. I will talk about where the opportunity is, but I wanted to kind of honor her and the message that she has sent to so many. So as I said, we're going to talk about primarily to start just the concept about how do you have a great video interview, that virtual career fair, who's hiring, and answer your questions. All right, so let's talk about this video interview, which is the mainstay of how people are communicating. So even if you get over the phone or you get an initial conversation, how does especially a recent grad or young adult best prepare for the video interview? And what I've linked in the comments is actually a resource for all of you, but I want to highlight some of the concepts to think about. And if you want more information about how to really be prepared for a video interview, feel free to grab that free resource so that can support you. So we kind of broke it down into three pieces. There's three things you should be thinking about. What are you doing before the interview? What are you doing during? And what are you doing after? So a couple of the pointers of how do you best prepare? What's the best way to get ready for a video interview? And one of the first things that we advise is make sure you check your technology. So the same way today that I'm using a microphone and a video camera and I have lighting and the background, you want to think about all of that and you want to test it out ahead of time. with a friend or with someone that you trust to make sure that it's working correctly and appropriately. Because if the technology doesn't work, the rest of that video interview is not going to go well. So absolutely, that's critical. The other thing is, you need to be dressed for the part. I have a lot of people say to me, young grads say, well, the company is really casual in their environment, so maybe I should dress casual. And our philosophy is it's okay to be the most dressed up person on the video call. I was actually had the honor of being quoted in the Wall Street Journal a few weeks ago, and we talked about video interviews. And not only did I say that it's okay to be the most dressed up, but you also have to bring a level of energy that maybe you don't always need to do in person. So that screen sometimes tampers things down a bit. So you need to be positive. You need to smile. You need to show that you're excited about what you're talking about and the person that you're talking to. And I think just also goes back to just the preparation, understanding what is the company about, what questions are you going to ask, and knowing your own skills. Do you have the content to talk about how you have the skill set and the examples that represent that? So we do a lot of prep on that piece, but just from an overview, that's some of the things to think about before going into a video interview. And by the way, that's good advice no matter what age job seeker you are, whether you're young or more experienced. The other thing to think about is, so the day of and the hour of the video interview, what are you doing to make sure that you're coming across as best as possible? So video is a little different, where often if we were to show up in a meeting in person, we would show up really early or a half an hour before, 15 minutes. Sometimes what we're finding is recruiters and employers are running their interviews like back to back. So you don't want to jump onto a video link too early. So maybe a few minutes before to go on the video link, but maybe not sitting there for 15 or 20 minutes or 30 minutes, because they might be using that link with another candidate. And the other thing is, you want to come across as confident. Even though the process might be daunting, you might feel overwhelmed, or maybe maybe you're not sure if you're as good as other candidates, you still have to exude that confidence that you know what you're saying, you feel confident about your abilities, and that you are clear in how you explain it. I think also getting practice of talking, very often young job seekers will write down the answers to your questions, which I think you absolutely should. You should write down ahead of time, what are the questions that they will probably ask? They will probably ask, tell me about yourself. They will probably ask, tell me why you'd like to work here, or why should we choose you over someone else? And you should have those written down. But it's very different to write the answers down than it is to say them verbally. So practicing verbalizing, whether it's just practicing recording yourself, whether it's practicing in front of a friend or family, but having that is really, really important as well, to make sure that you are clear and slow and articulate in getting your point across. And one other really important thing, which is actually a bonus with video interviews, is that you can have your notes. Now, here's the tricky part. You can use your notes, but you don't want to be looking down and reading the whole time. So something that I do, I'll kind of take something off here. I'll show you. So even when I do these sessions, I have all these little sticky notes and I put them around my computer and around the camera. So at least it's like a prompt to remind you about how to answer certain questions, but you don't have to look down. And you should take notes, and you can say, if you don't mind, I'd like to take a few notes. I want to make sure that I'm capturing the information, because the information that you take in the notes will be great resource for when you are writing that thank you note, and you can share, as you discussed, as you told me, these are the things that I want to, recap. So that's kind of some of the main tips for during. And then one of the most critical things to do after you have that video interview is to send a thank you note. I cannot tell you how many times I've spoken with employers, recruiters, who say, well, I really would have loved to hire them, but they never sent a thank you note. It's so simple, and it doesn't have to be this very long, elaborate letter. Just thanking them for their time, maybe point out something that you learned during the interview and why your skill set would be a good fit for the organization. But it is so critical. And then the continued follow-up. So those are some important things I think that will help in that video interview process before, during, and after. If you'd like to get a more kind of detailed advice of what we think about how to really do well and ace that video and virtual interview, please feel free to grab that link, that free resource that we have that I've linked in the comments, so you can have that resource to do well. And if you have questions about video interviews or how it's went, or whether it's went well or not, please post those as well. I'm happy to address those in the comments and see if we can support you in answering those questions. All right, let me talk about the virtual career fair for a few minutes. So right now, I know even this week and the next few weeks at many universities across the country, all of the career fairs are virtual. And this is new. This is not something that students are prepared for or have been experiencing in the past, or as well as universities. So we want to make sure that people know that they're out there. Companies want to hire recent grads. They are coming. They still are having a hard time. I know there's a lot of distraction between, online class and hopefully, people's health and managing the logistics of so many universities, but companies still need to hire, especially in certain segments, which I'll talk about momentarily. And students need to seek out when these are happening. At many universities, again, they're happening this week, next week, and the subsequent weeks. So a couple of things: reach out, make sure that you're a student or grad, or if you're watching as a student, you're reaching out to your career services center and finding out about these events. Very often you have to register, and there's also other platforms, technology platforms that it's being hosted on, whether it's Handshake or Career Echo, and getting familiar with how to do it. What's different about this environment, so instead of going to a large venue and standing online, you are doing it virtually. So a company may do a 30-minute webinar, and they're going to ask you to register, and they're going to see who the participants are. And then you have the opportunity to submit questions in the chat. And then from there, you can break off into a 10-minute live interview on the spot, or live video conversation with the recruiter. So just being able to manage things that are a little bit different, understanding the technology, same thing as before. One of the other important pieces that I think is actually could be helpful, I know a lot of students get very overwhelmed or get tongue-tied. What should I say? What's nice about this situation of doing it virtually is that you can think about your content ahead of time. You can write out potential answers to questions. You can write out the questions you want to ask, and you can have them, you can cut and paste them into the chat, as opposed to having to think about things on the spot. It allows you to do some preparation ahead of time, which was really a nice way to be able to be ready and feel like you're ready for these conversations. And the other thing, as I always say, is you have to do your research. You need to think about what's the reason why I'd want to talk to this company? Why do I want them? Why are they interesting to me? And why would I want them to hire me? How do my skills align with what they are saying and how I potentially could help them? So the same research you would do for any interview or meeting with any employer, the same research applies here. What I tell students is you don't have to plan on talking to every company at a career fair. Pick your top 5 or 10. I don't think you need to be able to talk to everyone. I think it's just knowing, targeting in on who you want to talk to and having some clarity about what you want to do. And make sure anybody you meet that you're connecting with them on LinkedIn before or after the session, that you're sending them that thank you note, that you are doing the homework. But I think don't miss out on this. I had the opportunity to speak to the head of career services at a number of schools. And the biggest challenge is to, one, make students aware that this is happening. You're not watching someone walk by in their suit and a portfolio on their way to some venue on campus. So it's knowing that it's happening and knowing that there are companies out there wanting to employ you. So too many students tell me when I ask them, I said, did you go to the career fair? And they say, no, I never did. And I say, why? And they say, well, I don't know. I didn't have time, or I didn't think of it. You'll save yourself a lot of effort post-graduation if you invest the time to go now. So, use those resources, especially while you're in school. I can't recommend it enough to make use of it. And I do have a resource for that as well. So if you're looking for a quick worksheet on how to best prepare for the virtual career fair, I've linked a free resource in the comments. So please feel free to take advantage of that and use that as well. And then the other thing I wanted to spend a moment on is who's hiring. I get that question a lot about, well, are there even any jobs? Who's actually even hiring? Should I even bother taking the time to look for a job right now? It seems, very difficult and overwhelming. So it's not perfect. This is not an easy environment. I'm not going to tell you that, this is an incredible job market. But with that being said, companies are hiring. They are, and they're hiring recent grads. And I think the most important thing is to think about and understand where they are hiring, because there are industries in this market right now that are in incredible high demand. So let me talk about those industries and then some of those companies that are hiring. So one of the top industries that are hiring right now is IT and technology. In order to enable all of these people like myself, coming to you from my home and people to work from home and remotely, you need to have tools and technology to make that happen. So whether it's Zoom or Slack, or whether companies like Oracle or Salesforce, these organizations are hiring and are looking to build out their businesses in lots of different departments. So maybe if you're not a technical person or you don't know how to code, but maybe you want to be in HR or in marketing, well, maybe you should look to leverage that type of role in those types of companies. And I think that's what's a really critical, is look to the places that are hiring. The other organizations that are hiring right now are finance. I had a colleague who is an HR at a pretty large investment bank, and he shared that their numbers are exactly the same, that they're not paring back on the people that they're hiring. They're actually also looking for recent grads and college students to come into their rotation programs and then groom them into full-time offers. So, the finance sector has also been strong, and that it continues to hire as well. And then the other industry that is a more, I'll say, obvious one is, healthcare, but also pharmaceuticals, and the way we're consuming over-the-counter products, or whether it's, a company like Unilever of soap, over-the-counter medications. These companies are still growing. There's huge demand, and again, looking to those organizations that are in those need. And same thing, delivery. So UPS and Amazon, anything online, even Lowe's and Home Depot, because the housing market is growing. People are investing in their homes, the real estate market. And what's interesting, one of the actual positions that have the highest confidence, that there is a confidence index of the type of jobs that feel the most confident right now, is sales. So those people who are in industries where they're able to help promote the sales of those products, or those salespeople, they feel very strong about their ability. So that's another strong area. So I think just continue to pay attention to the market and the industry of what's happening, and to make sure that you're seeing what the opportunities are. And I encourage you to continue to do that. So I wanted to make sure of that. So I want to also make sure that I'm answering your questions. If there's any particular questions that I can answer for you, I welcome the opportunity to do that, because I want to make sure that we're able to get to your questions and see if there's things that are on your mind that you want to think about. So I'll give people a few minutes there. So one of the things I also want to talk about is this feeling of the competition and the market right now. And it is more competitive. It is something where, especially, young job seekers need to, I'll say, be on their game about how they look for opportunities. One of the most important things that they can do is to make sure that they understand their skills and they understand the value that they can bring to an employer. It is so important to have clarity on yourself. Very often there's pressure of like, well, you should go do this or you should go do that. And I think so many young people do have so many talents. Sometimes they just don't realize it. And I think understanding what are the skill sets that you have, what is it that makes you unique? Because this is how you start to differentiate yourself. Are you a great writer? Are you, analytical? Do you understand how to do research? Can you, sell or do that in that area? But I think thinking about what is it the skills that you have? And then what are the stories behind that? How would you explain to someone that you're a good writer? Did you write for the school paper? Do you, write part-time for an online magazine? Think about the ways that you explain that, because I think the more that young people can have clarity on their skills and then how they then will bring them to an employer. That's actually why we created one of our programs called the Skills Accelerator Method. It solely focuses on helping grads get clear about their skills and then tell the stories about them. So we'll link that in the comments as well. But just know that there's opportunity, but you have to have some clarity as well. A great question here about what are the job prospects for mechanical engineering majors. So we've actually had a number of clients who are in mechanical engineering. I think, again, it's looking to those industries that are, looking for those skills. Sometimes it could be that, you have to think, what are the pieces of engineering that you want to bring to an employer? Is it your ability to create, a prototype? Are you able to, work in a lab? Are you able to come up with new technology or work as part of a project? And I've seen opportunities in those sectors. I think you have to look, geographically where you are, but also those that maybe do they help contribute to the technology sector or the healthcare sector that are growing? But we absolutely have had a number of clients who are mechanical engineers who've been able to find opportunities. Great question here from Rachel. How has networking changed since COVID, and do people have the time to network now? So that's a great question. I think networking is actually better. Normally, I know the feeling is, well, let me meet someone for a cup of coffee. Let me meet them in person. Let me go to an event where I can shake someone's hand. But because we are all in the same remote environment, I actually feel that contacts and people are more inclined to have a conversation, that they're more inclined to be willing to connect with you. I think especially when you're a college student or recent grad and you still are saying, I'm a recent grad from XYZ University, some of the best people to reach out with are fellow alumni. These are the people that went through the same process as you. And I think people are definitely more in the mode of, how can I help? How can I support you? And I think the best way to reach out, especially on LinkedIn or any other medium, is to not just do the default connect. Show that you've read their profile. Show that you saw something about their profile that's interesting to you or that you have something in common. And it'll make the person more likely to accept that request. And then when you come together and prepare, you want to think about, how can I learn more? And also, how can I help them? Now, a lot of times young grads will say, well, how could I be of help to someone who's in a senior role? But I think, I think it's important to not come across desperate. You don't want to be like, hi, I recently graduated. I really, really need a job. Because that doesn't feel very good. They don't know you. It's not very comfortable. What I'd rather see a recent grad do is saying, hi, I'm a recent grad and I studied this area and I'm really interested in your role. And I've seen you've had some different positions and I'd love to learn more about it and how you got there. And I think people are really receptive when they're seen as a thought leader or mentor versus, can you just get me a job? And I think there's tremendous opportunity for networking right now. And I think people are receptive. I do happen to really like LinkedIn as a platform for doing that. And I think there's opportunity. Question from Andrea. Thanks for joining. Is attire for virtual fairs the same as it was for in-person fairs, suit and tie? Oh, I'm so glad you asked this because I forgot to mention it earlier. I think it is. I think your attire from head to toe should be exactly as if you were to have shown up in person. Now, Can you dress, business appropriate from the waist up? Sure. But if for some reason you had to get up and walk out of the screen and they saw pajama pants, I wouldn't do it. I think also it's a state of mind that when there's an opportunity to have a career fair and you have an interview and you're on interview, I think you should be dressed from head to toe. I think it's also how you feel. I think it's how you come across, that you're coming across serious, you're taking it seriously. And I think always for any opportunity, not only career fairs, but especially career fairs and interviews, that you dress business appropriate. So if your dress is, jacket, shirt, tie, or ladies, you're wearing a dress or blouse, absolutely, I think you should be dressed professionally, because I think people make an opinion and a judgment in the very first second that you come on the screen about what you're wearing and how you look and if you look ready to go. So I think that's a good question. And sometimes, always we're definitely, being from home, people are more casual, but I think it's always appropriate to be the most dressed up person. There was an interesting story. A colleague of mine did the in-person career fairs at a pretty large university for a very well-known consulting firm. And he said to me, he goes, at the end of the day, we never talked about the people that were overdressed or well-dressed. We talked about the candidates who showed up in their gym shorts or just passing by on their way, from somewhere else and didn't take it seriously. That's what they talked about. And it wasn't in a positive light. So I think being dressed professionally always, when you're trying to make an impression, I think is positive in that area. So let me just check to see if there's any other questions that we have here. I know sometimes there's a short delay, but what I would offer is this. If you know a college student or grad and they're struggling, give them the support they need. And I'll just speak for myself. I am also a parent of a college senior. I am living this real time with everyone else. And just because I do this for a living doesn't always mean that my kid wants to listen to my advice as well. But, really try to talk to them, understand what it is that they're trying to go after. And if you feel that you want to learn more or have a conversation to see how someone like Next Great Step can support them, we welcome that. We offer a complimentary consultation to anyone interested in learning more about our services, and I will link that in there as well. But I really welcome and appreciate the time that you took today to listen in and ask your questions. And I wish everyone great success. So again, we have links to our video tips and how to ace that video interview, on how to be successful at a virtual career fair, and a piece about the Skills Accelerator, and then as well as any consultation. So we welcome the opportunity to talk to you further, and we hope everyone has a great day.